Hello and welcome to the Thank You for Knitting YouTube channel. My name is Alana and I am a yarn shop owner and knitwear designer living in Auckland, New Zealand. Today's topic is about summer knitting inspiration, and this topic has managed to elude me for almost the entirety of summer. I started mentioning towards the beginning of our summer here in the Southern Hemisphere that I was planning to do a summer knitting inspiration video, and it would have made a heck of a lot more sense back then, back in November, December. But here we are at the end of February, and I've been talking about it for so long that I felt that I owe it to someone out there to actually make this video, even though if you're in the Southern Hemisphere like me, summer is kind of coming to a close and there's probably not a lot of time to knit summer tops now that you actually want to wear this summer. But I still wanted to film this video for a couple of reasons. The first reason is that this video will just be out there. So anybody living anywhere at any time who's looking for summer knitting inspiration could use this as a reference point. If you are living in the Southern Hemisphere like me, this video will still be relevant when you're preparing for next summer. And also some people like to knit their summer garments in the winter and their winter garments in the summer so that they have them ready to wear in that season. And also, I know that some people who watch my videos are in the Northern Hemisphere, in which case you will potentially be already thinking about summer knitting that you want to do, sort of heading into your summer. So for all those reasons, I still thought it was worthwhile making this video, and also because I said I would, so whenever you're watching it, hopefully it's helpful. So the way that I have structured this video is I've put together a Ravelry bundle with a variety of summer pattern ideas that I've sort of curated for the purposes of this video. I also have more summer tops and more favorites in my Ravelry bundle called Summer. So that's there. Anyone can see that if you want to, but I've just picked 30 patterns for the purposes of this video, and that includes tank tops, t-shirts, summer cardigans, and a couple of crochet summer tops. So the majority of this is going to be t-shirts because that's sort of my favorite thing to make for summer tops. And then in addition, I've added the other categories as well. So some of these patterns I have knit before, some of them I have not, but if they're in this list, it's because I would or want to knit them. And so I thought I would go through them based in the category and talk about each pattern quickly and sort of show them on the screen. And then when I get to the ones that I have knit before, I will show you my samples if I have them with me. I have a little bag of things with me. So first things first, I should tell you what I'm wearing because it is a summer top. And this was recently finished this year. If you've seen any of my other recent podcasts, you've seen this already, but this is the Alpine Bloom pattern by Caitlin Hunter. And the yarn that I used is Alpaca Yarn's Luxurious Fusion in the color Mustard, and some Handspun yarn that was spun by a friend of mine for the colorwork in the yoke. But if you're not a spinner or you don't have access to Handspun, then I think the best alternative would be something like Spin Cycle, which are these color changing yarns. If you don't know Spin Cycle, they create what I think could be called a marled gradient. So they have a marled or barber pole effect with the two different strands that are different colors, as well as gradually changing color in a gradient style, which is just, it's dyed in the wool before spinning. So the way this yarn is made is quite specific and labor intensive, and they hand dye the fiber before they mill spin it. So it's a really special yarn. Anyway, not to waffle on about this yarn, but if you don't have hand spun, which most people probably don't, Spin Cycle would be perfect for the yoke of this if you want a similar effect. The Spin Cycle has even more of a gradient. This Handspun was a bit more subtle. But yeah, that's what I'm wearing. Okay, so I'm going to start with the category of tank tops or sleeveless tops. And for this, I just have picked 5 of my favorite tops. Now, the first thing that stands out to me looking at these next to each other is they're all fairly basic. And I think I've noticed in general that for summer knits, I tend to like things a little bit more simple or classic, I guess. This is probably the biggest exception to that, this color work and lace and all of that, which is quite nice too because it feels a bit fancy. But typically I've noticed for summer knitting, I like to do relatively simple knits, just wearable, I guess. Okay, first on my list of tank top patterns is Camisole number 9 by My Favorite Things Knitwear. And this is a very popular pattern. And I think part of why this is so popular is because it looks very professional. It looks like a commercial garment. However, it's hand knit. And that basically comes down to, I think, the tightness of the gauge, which creates such a nice even fabric, and also the really nice finishing details and the edgings. So this is a fingering weight or 4-ply pattern with a pretty tight gauge. It's meant to be knit on a 3mm needle at a 30 stitch gauge, so that is fairly fine, and that just creates a really neat fabric that I think is part of the reason why this garment is so popular. And I haven't knit this myself, but I know a couple of people who have made them, and I've seen them being worn in person, and it really is a garment that looks fantastic, like a wardrobe staple. So this is definitely a pattern that I would like to knit at some point. I don't wear a lot of tank tops, and that's part of why so far I haven't made it, but if I wanted a knit tank top, this would probably be my #1 pick. And I want to remind you what I've said before as well. If you're one of those people who's put off by knitting something on a 3mm needle, this has no sleeves. So I think you would find that because the total surface area of the garment is a lot smaller, it may not take as long as you think. It may still zip right by. The next tank top is quite similar. It is the Mixed Rib Cami by Florence Miller, and it is also knit in a fingering weight or light fingering weight yarn. It is also knit on a 3mm needle and a 30 stitch gauge, but it has a variety of different ribs in it, so different repeats of ribbing, and it's got a nice high neckline, which I personally like quite a lot. And just looking at the photos, I think again that it looks quite professional, quite sophisticated, and really lovely, and also flattering. I think ribbed summer items, or just ribbed items in general, tend to be quite flattering because they do sort of shape to your body in a sort of a nice way. So yeah, I really like the look of this pattern, and it is again high on my list if I were to knit myself a tank top. The third one is called the Tonight Top by Lily Kate France, and this is not going to be a pattern that necessarily appeals to everyone because it does have a mock turtleneck, and so it is a sleeveless garment, but it also has the high neck. And so it may be one of those items that you wear a little bit more in between seasons. And I also think it would be good for layering, you know, wearing something like this under a cardigan, for example. But it also looks very chic, I think, on its own. This is also a fingering weight or 4-ply pattern, and it is knit on a 3.25mm needle as the main needle. Part of why I also really like this pattern is that Lily Kate France, she's a designer, and she also has her own YouTube channel, and I've watched a handful of her videos on YouTube, and she speaks pretty openly about her designing process on there, and I am very impressed by her as a designer. I can tell that she puts a ton of thought and a ton of work into making sure that her garments are very well fitted, and she seems to really pay attention to a lot of little details and shaping and all of that. And so you can see on this pattern that she has done a really neat job of tidying up the sort of underarm area, and I think it looks really, really good. And there's reasons for that. She hasn't done the sort of the easier way to design a top like this. She's put the work in to make this really well fitted, and so I really like the look of it, and I would love to make one. I wanted to mention as well that if you are a person who wants all of the things I was talking about, I know that Lily Kate also has another tank top pattern which she designed. It's very similar in shaping to this one, and obviously she's used her same designing techniques around it, but she's made it with a lower neck for people who don't want the high neck. So I'll maybe just throw up a picture of that one too. That's another option. And that one is called Calm Night Cami. So it's, yeah, like I say, similar shaping around the underarms, but it's more of a V-neck. Okay, we're getting a little bigger in gauge now. So my fourth top in The tank top category is called Thea Top by Susanne Mueller. And this to me is a great example of a basic tank top that looks really, really nice. And so this one is worsted weight, and the main needle is a 4mm needle. And it's just a very well-shaped sort of, not a scoop neck, it's somewhere between a crew neck and a scoop neck, I think. And again, I just like the width of the straps. This looks very easy to wear. It looks like the shaping is quite nice and flattering. And this would be a really, really good option for any of your sort of DK to worsted weight, you know, summer yarns. And yeah, I really like the look of the Thea Top. And the final tank top pattern is called Fernwood by Alicia Plummer. And this one is Aran weight or 10 ply, and she's actually knit it on a 6mm needle. So this would be a very fast knit. And I looked through the project pages, and it seems to look quite flattering on a lot of the people who are posting photos of them wearing it, which is always nice to see. And it's a bit more of a flowy fit towards the bottom, and it has a lovely little lace sort of patterning down at the bottom. So just a little bit of something fancier. And I think this looks super elegant. It would also be, as I said, a really quick knit and fairly easy from the looks of it. So Fernwood by Alicia Plummer. Okay, moving on to t-shirts. This is by far the biggest category in my list. I have 15 items in the t-shirt category. It was hard narrowing it down to 15 because t-shirts, like I said, are my favorite summer garment. So there should be a pretty good variety in here of knits that require a lighter weight yarn like a 4-ply, and then ones that have a DK or a worsted weight, because I wanted to have a variety. And so I'm just going to go not in a particular order, but just in the order I have them sort of pulled up on my bundle. Okay, it looks like I've actually organized this so that the ones I have knit are first. So that's great. I'll show you my samples. Okay, the first one is called the Fleur Tee by Marina Balambaeva, and this is a lovely top. Like I said, I have knit this. It is done in DK weight at a 22 stitch gauge on a 4mm needle, and it has a really nice shoulder shaping. It's one of those shoulder shapings where it looks like a set-in sleeve, but it's done seamlessly from the top down, and it has a nice V-neck. So I have knit this, and I've showed it before. I've done it in the Erika Knight Studio linen. So this is my sample. I hope you can see. I know it's black, so it might be a little hard to see the neck, but it's just a nice V-neck. Not too low, not too high. I think it's a really good V-neck with a nice rib around the edges. And maybe you can see that detail in the center of the V-neck. I like how that's quite a clean look. And yeah, I really like this shirt. I knit mine. It's a little bit oversized, and so it's very cozy, but the linen yarn gives it just a really nice drape, so I find it very wearable, very easy to wear with a lot of things. And obviously I knit mine in black. The color is Kumo. This is the color I used, Kumo 411, just black, but they have quite a big range of different colors. I just grabbed a couple of them, but they actually have a ton of different colors. You know, there's darker, more pigmented ones, there's a lot of pale ones, there's cool tones, warm tones. It's a really good color range and a really fantastic yarn. I've mentioned before that this yarn is mainly made out of recycled linen, so it's very soft compared to knitting with other linen yarns, and that creates a really enjoyable knitting experience. And I've knit a ton of summer tops in this yarn. So anyway, that is my version of the Fleur Tee, and I would definitely knit this pattern again. I really enjoyed it. Okay, the next pattern is the Peacock Tee by Le Knit, and this is another one that is worsted weight on a 4mm needle. I have also knit this one before, and I've showed it before. I very much like this pattern, and I have also made it in the Erika Knight Studio linen. You can see that for a long time this has been one of my favorite summer yarns. So this is my version of the Peacock Tee, and I like it very much. It just has this lovely lace at the top. It's knit top down in the round. It's a yoke style shaping, so very easy, I thought. as I said, I've used the Studio Linen. Again, this color is called Pigment, this purple color. And I think I did change one thing, which is, I think I did one fewer lace repeat because I didn't want the lace going too low. And I'm very happy with how this turned out. Okay, I guess while we're on the topic of everything I've knit in Studio Linen, we're kind of doing all of those first. So the next one is Anchor's Summer Shirt by Petite Knit, and I really like this pattern. I have seen a lot of people knit it. We have a lot of people in our knitting community who have knit it, a lot of our customers have, and everyone who I see wearing it, it's just very flattering. So this is, again, another project which I've knit in the Erica Knight Studio Linen, and this is my version. This one, I don't remember the name of the color, but it is navy blue. So there's only one color of Studio Linen that is navy blue. Oh, this color is called Pigment. Did I say the other one was Pigment? Okay, this one is Velvet and this one is Pigment. I think that's right. So this is also a DK weight pattern on a 4mm needle. It's a top-down circular yoke. There's just increases, and then there's this kind of ribbed detail in the neckline, which I think is part of why it's so flattering. And otherwise, it's just a pretty basic t-shirt. But again, I find it very wearable. It's very classic, as a lot of my summer knits are. So can definitely recommend the Anchor Summer Shirt. And I know that Petite Knit also has, I think it's called the Anchor Tee, which came out later and is in fingering weight. So if you want a lighter weight version of the same style, then you can do the Anchor Tee as well. Okay, the next pattern is the Julienne Tee, also by Le Knit. And this is another one with that shaping style that looks like a seamless, it's a seamless set-in sort of look. So it's a very nice shape. And then it just has some stripes. And so worsted weight, 4mm needle. And this is my version, which there's still ends that I haven't woven in, but I've got no good excuse for that. So again, I have showed this before on the podcast, but this is a great summer shirt. I like the shape of it. I like the neckline and I like the sleeve shaping. It's also top down, and I think if you didn't want the stripes, you could just knit it plain and it would just be a really good looking sort of classic t-shirt. But I also like the stripes. I think they're cute. And then I added a little detail with a third color for the edgings. And yeah, great pattern. I really like this designer. I've actually knit a lot of her patterns before. And yeah, I think that's a great sort of basic-ish summer tee. Okay, the next one on my list is the Noose Light by Elspeth Judith. I have also talked about this one before, and now this one is fingering weight or 4-ply, and the main needle is a 3.5mm needle, so obviously it's a tighter gauge and a thinner yarn. And there's two options for how you can do this one. There's the option with texture everywhere, and then there's an option where you just have texture in the yoke and then a plain body. So I did a plain body because that's just the look that I wanted. And I used the Tussa Tweed yarn, the pure silk tweedy yarn. And I really, really like this one. I mean, I've talked about it before, but this has become one of my absolute favorite summer knits. And I think part of the reason is that I really do like the light weight of it. It's very drapey and just really nice to wear. Sorry, it's been folded, but here it is. So I like all the sort of subtle texture going on in the yoke. And yeah, otherwise it's just a yoke style, circular yoke style, top down in the round. And the only other thing that I've changed is instead of having the rolled edge, I picked up and added a ribbing for about 1 inch at the top. And yeah, I love this shirt. Can highly recommend. Okay, the next one is also a fingering weight or 4-ply pattern. It's called Salty Air Tea by Samantha Guerin. This got pretty popular, I think, maybe last year or 2 years ago. And it's a great pattern. It's just a pretty easy lace repeat in the yoke, but it looks quite lovely. This is my version here. So the reason, by the way, that I'm not really talking about the recommended yarns for the pattern is because I don't think I've used the recommended yarn for any of these projects, so I can't speak to those yarns. I can really only speak to the yarns that I've used. And for this yarn, for this pattern, I have used the BC Garn, Bio Balance. I just grabbed one. This is a different color, but that's what it looks like. Now this yarn is a mix. So it's 55% pure organic wool, 45% pure organic cotton. So nearly half of wool and cotton. And so it is going to be a little bit warmer than the pure cotton or linen or silk yarns. It does have a little tiny bit of warmth to it, but because the yarn is thin, I still think it's quite breezy and drapey, and I still think it's quite lovely for summer. And you know, the lace makes it kind of breezy, so I still think that's a lovely yarn for this project. Maybe it's not one that I would wear on a super, super hot beach day because of all the wool that's in there, but certainly wearable in the summer and certainly in the in-between seasons as well. So that's it, Salty Air Tea by Samantha Guerin. Definitely recommend this. And I only used 2.5 skeins of this Bio Balance. It didn't eat up very much yarn because it is quite cropped as well. And it was a very, very quick knit, so can definitely recommend. This is a great example where, yes, it's in a thinner yarn, but it doesn't have any sleeves, it's cropped, it's on a 3.5 millimeter needle, so it's not actually a super tight gauge, so I found it just went really quickly, and the lace pattern was easy to memorize and, you know, addictive and moved quickly, so yeah, love this one. Okay, the next pattern is a design of mine. It was actually my first ever garment pattern that I put out in 2020. And this is also 4-ply fingering weight. The main needle size is 3.5 millimeters. And I've got 2 versions that I have made. These were, yeah, a while ago. But this first one, this is in Cup of Tea, I think it was called Cup of Tea Yarns, which is this beautiful merino, hand-dyed, 100% merino, and she doesn't dye yarn anymore, so you can't get this yarn anymore, but it is a really lovely yarn, and she was the one who collaborated with me for this design, so that is lovely. And the main features of this design are, you know, it's a raglan shaping for the sleeves. The neck is built by first working back and forth and shaping it before you join it eventually in the front. And then when you get down to the sort of waistline, you do a rapid decrease and then you do some twisted ribbing. So it creates a bit of a retro, I don't know, vintage kind of style. It's more fitted, but I really like it and I do think it's quite flattering. And that's my first version. I also made one in Brooklyn Tweed Peary, which is a beautiful yarn, which also sadly doesn't exist anymore. You can't get Brooklyn Tweed Peary anymore, but it's also 100% merino wool. And that is my second version. So I love these tops. Both of these samples have been hanging here at the shop for a little while. And the other thing that I will admit is because they are 100% merino, you know, you can wear a merino shirt sort of any time of the year, but these would not be my go-to in the heat of summer either. Because they're 100% merino, there's a little bit of warmth going on with these shirts. So it's more of something I'd layer with other clothing during a slightly cooler or more in-between season, I think. So I would actually love to make another version of this pattern, another project of this pattern in a more summery yarn, which maybe I will do actually. It's a good idea. I would love to make one of these in like a linen or silk or something, and I even think the drape could look really lovely with that waist shaping. So yeah, we'll see. Maybe I'll make a third one of these at some point. Okay, the next one in this list is the Ranunculus by Midori Hirose. Now you have most likely heard of this pattern if you are a knitter. It's been in the top 3 patterns on Ravelry for, I don't know, many, many years. It's ridiculously popular, and I've made 7 of these, and I may make a whole separate video about that at some point because I am one of those people who loves this pattern. I think part of the magic of it is it's just a very loose gauge, so it's super, super quick, and you can make it work with any thickness of yarn, so it's just very adaptable, and it just has a lot of lovely details that make it look really lovely. And I also think the combination of yoke style on the top and raglan shaping on the bottom creates a really flattering look. So as I say, I have made 7 of these, and you can make them thicker, thinner, you can make them more wintry or more summery. And a lot of my versions are long sleeve and have mohair, and they're quite warm. I won't show you all 7 of mine right now, but I'll just show you one that I just grabbed off of our rack over there. And this is one that I made to go with a bridesmaid dress that I was wearing to a wedding, and the dress was almost exactly this color, so I got a perfect color match, but it was like a spaghetti strap type of dress, and I just wanted to have a little something over top of it, and this ended up matching perfectly. I will insert a photo of myself wearing it at the wedding because I think it turned out great. So the reason why I made it so cropped is so it could go with the dress. But I made this out of just one single strand of mohair, mohair silk, lace weight. So it's very fine, very delicate, and I think quite elegant. And it took barely any yarn. I used less than 2 little balls of mohair. So that would be, they're 25 grams each, so less than 50 grams of yarn total. And I used a 5mm needle. And yeah, this is just one of many ranunculuses, but it is such a versatile pattern that you can make it summery, and I just think it's fantastic. Oh, I forgot. I did actually grab 2 other ranunculuses to show you. So these are the other 2 that I've made that are more summery. So just quickly, this one is made in Noro Kakigori, which is a blend of, let's see. Okay, so Noro Kakigori is a blend of cotton, silk, rayon, and nylon. And so it's a summery sort of fiber mix. And then of course it has such a beautiful kind of color, tweedy kind of color going on. Noro always has really cool colors. And yeah, so I made this one short sleeved. I used only 1 cake of the kakigori because they come in these big 200-gram cakes. So that was quite pleasing to make an entire garment out of 1 of those. And I think I didn't modify this one too much, but yeah, I think it's lovely. I don't wear it much anymore because I don't really think it's my colors, but it is quite cool. And the other summer ranunculus that I have is this one, which I have showed before. I think I've worn it on here before. And this one I did modify, and the main way I modified it was I got rid of the eyelet section. I didn't want the holes, and instead I created this sort of gentle looking cable and put that in there instead. But this is the long lino. It's like a worsted weight, 100% linen. And then because I was running low on the lino, I also had some army green color of the Erica Knight Studio linen, and I used that for the edgings because the colors matched pretty much perfectly, and I don't even think you can tell. So that is a fantastic, 100% linen summery ranunculus, and I do wear this quite a lot. I think it's really lovely. Okay, now we're in the territory of things that I haven't knit yet. The next garment that I really like is called Luna Tea by Carissa. And this is knit in Brooklyn Tweed Puri, which is this yarn, although that doesn't exist anymore, but you could use any number of different 4-ply fingering weight yarns. And I just really like I like this sort of slightly high neck on this one, and I like the broken rib texture, and the broken rib is also built into the raglan shaping, so I think it just looks quite cool. And it's been sort of in the back of my mind as something I would like to knit at some point potentially. It's knit on a 4mm needle, and as I say, it's all done in broken rib, so it's just really lovely, and I think it looks kind of sophisticated. And okay, the next one is Friday Tea by Petite Knit, and it is also fingering weight or 4-ply, and it's mainly knit on a 3mm needle, and the whole thing is done in, okay, it looks like a broken rib, but this one looks like a broken 1x1 rib, and the Luna Tea looks like it might have been a broken 2x2 rib. I'm not 100% sure. I don't have the picture pulled up anymore. Don't hold me to that, but this also has that broken rib kind of look to it, and in addition, it has stripes, and I just really like also how the neckline is finished. It's sort of like a double folded looking neckline, which I always think makes a garment look pretty professional and more sort of commercial in a good way. So I've always liked this pattern as well, and it's definitely been on my mind for things that I would like to knit at some point. But yeah, that's Friday Tea by Petite Knit. Okay, another 4-ply fingering weight option is the Lake Isle by Rachel Ilsley. She's also known as Unwind Knitwear. And what I like most about this pattern is the shape and the fit of it. It also has this lovely panel of color work across the middle of it. And I could see myself knitting this with the color work. I could also see myself knitting this just plain because I like the look of, it's a very delicate looking scoop neck and it's a really nice sleeve shaping. I think it might be a ziggurat sleeve. And the edge of the sleeve also has a nice kind of, I think it looks like a double folded stockinette. So it's not ribbed, it's just a clean sort of stockinette edge. It looks like it has maybe one row of pearls just to give it that sort of sharp, neat edge, but I think it's a really clean and nice look. I think it's just an I-cord edge on the neckline, which also looks really clean and nice. And I've just seen in the project pages, and also a friend of mine knit one of these, and I just thought it was a very flattering shape and fit. So definitely would knit this pattern. The next pattern is the Sky Tea by Florence Sperling. And this is done in lace plus lace held together, which equals about a fingering weight. So I'm thinking you could also knit it in just a normal fingering weight on its own, knit on a 3.5mm needle. And it's all done in this sort of waffle stitch. And I just think the waffle stitch looks really lovely, and I also like the look of how it's shaped. So it looks like more or less a drop shoulder, but it's a drop shoulder with a lot of shaping going on. And then you just have a little rib on the sleeves and a really nice, gentle sort of scoop. Maybe scoop neck is the wrong word. It looks almost between a scoop and a, what's that neckline called? It's not quite a boat neck, but it almost has that boat necky look, but without being right up on your neck, you know? So to me, it looks slightly boat necky, but it scoops down. I don't know if any of that makes sense. I'll show you a picture and hopefully that will explain. But anyway, yeah, Florence Sperling is another designer that I really admire. I've admired quite a lot of her designs over the years. She has a ton of really beautiful sort of mosaic, what's the word? Really beautiful shawls that incorporate like intarsia and a lot of different types of cool looking color work. So this is a bit more simple as far as her designs go. It's just all in one color, but the texture's lovely and the fit looks nice. It just looks kind of casual, but in a way that's really nice. So yeah, Sky Tea by Florence Sperling. Okay, the next one on my list, I must have put here when I hadn't knit it, and I still haven't finished it, but I am currently in the middle of knitting it. It is called the So Frilled Tea by Nicole Thorson Knits. And it is a sport weight or 5-ply pattern knit on a 3.75mm main gauge. And she knit hers in, I think, an alpaca yarn. I am using a 100% cotton yarn for mine. I've showed it on the podcast before, but maybe I'll quickly grab it again just to show you now. Okay, so the yarn I'm using is the Amano Sammy 100% organic Peruvian Pima cotton. This is an incredibly silky, soft cotton, unlike any other cotton I've ever used before. But this yarn is advertised as a DK weight, and in my opinion, I think it could be knit as a DK weight, but I think it also works great as a sport weight because it's definitely a lighter DK. And so I am in the middle of knitting this pattern. Let's see. Yeah, so that's my version so far. And yeah, in her original pattern, she has a ribbed neckline and then she has frills on the sleeves and on the bottom. But my plan is to put a little frill on the neck and a little frill on the sleeves and not a frill on the bottom. So I just cast on past the neckline and I plan to come back later and do the frill. And if I don't like it, I'll just rip it out and do ribbing. But I just wanted to leave the neck till the end and then decide then how I want to do it. But yeah, this yarn is knitting up so soft and silky, incredibly lovely. And I'm really curious to see how the cotton goes as far as the frills. I don't know if the frills will look as nice and defined as they do in the alpaca, in the cotton. We'll find out. And if the frills look bad, I will just make it a tee with no frills, I think. But yeah, I'll update you as that goes. That is my So Frilled tee. So far, so good. Okay, we're back to 8-ply DK weight. So this is the Mellow Mood top by Julia Pirro. And as I say, it's 8-ply. It's on a 4mm needle, very classic needle for that weight of yarn. And this is a fairly basic looking t-shirt, but it just has a really simple kind of broken rib texture happening in the raglan shaping. And I just really like the look of it. I think it looks, you know, casual. It looks pretty basic, but that little detail also, I think, kind of changes it a little bit. And yeah, it just looks like a great t-shirt to wear and a pretty easy one to knit. When you look at the different photos, I think that they look quite good. So that's definitely one that I would potentially knit at some point. And yeah, it is the Mellow Mood top. Okay, now this is my final t-shirt item, and it is called Cat Number 1 by Pia Trans. And it is a DK weight or 8-ply yarn. It's on a 4mm needle, which again, very standard sort of gauge. And yeah, I'll insert the photo and you'll see, but this has a unique shaping that you see sometimes in knitwear, but it's not super common, where I don't know what it's called, but maybe you can see in the photo, the increases are done in such a way where you sort of have this shoulder piece and then you have the increases going outside of the shoulder piece. It's kind of something we see in jumpers, but in this context with the wider neckline, it just gives it a really unique look. It sort of looks like it's hugging the shoulders in a certain way, but it looks really lovely in the photos. And then beyond the shoulders, there's just a really nice section of kind of, you know, texture in the yoke. I really like that this is texture, again, without holes or eyelets, because you don't always want that. And it's just a beautiful little simple texture, and otherwise it's just from the, you know, for the rest of it, it just kind of looks like a classic t-shirt. But I think that that little bit of shoulder detail and texture gives it a really nice look. So I would definitely knit this pattern. And yeah, that is it for t-shirts. Okay, so 2 more categories, and the next one is what I'm sort of considering to be summer cardigans. So these are a variety of cardigans that either have lace, or they're short sleeved, or they're open in the front. I don't know, they're cardigans that, to my mind, you could knit and wear in warmer weather. So there's just 5 of them. And the first one is super lovely. It is all over lace. And so I think it looks super elegant and kind of fancy. I would definitely knit this. You could knit it long sleeved for sure, but she has knit the original version in short sleeve, which also looks really lovely. So you can kind of wear it like a shirt, buttoned up, or you can open it up and wear it over something like more of a cardigan. But I would consider it a summery cardigan, and I think you could totally knit it in a linen or cotton or some kind of summer yarn like that. And yeah, the pattern is by Sumin Kim, Laurier cardigan. I think I already said that. And it is in light fingering weight 4-ply. So the original sample is Knitting for All of Cotton Merino, which is a lighter 4-ply, but I think you could use standard 4-plies as well, as long as they kind of work for the gauge, because the gauge is 28 stitches. It's a 3.25mm needle, so I do think you could make a lot of 4-ply yarns work for this pattern. And yeah, I think it just would be really lovely for, I don't know, something you could dress up a little bit, wear it over a dress, but I think it's really beautiful and I would definitely knit this. Okay, the next one is along a similar vein where I think it looks a little bit fancy and I really think it's pretty. And this is called Margaret T by Johanna Gerich, also known as Colibri by Johanna. And it's also fingering weight or 4-ply, 3.5mm needle, 22 stitch gauge, and it just has the cutest little details. It is sort of a V-neck, but not too low, and it just has these really sweet ties in the front and also a very cute frill on the bottom and on the sleeves. And it looks to me like the frilly bit is done in just a lace mohair, so it's kind of ethereal looking and fluffy, and I think it's just really, really pretty. So I would totally knit this pattern. I also think that it would look nice with long fitted sleeves or 3/4 sleeves, and then the ties in the front and the frill on the bottom. But yeah, I think this cardigan looks, as I say, sophisticated, fancy. You could totally dress it up, and I think it's quite lovely. So that's Margaret. She's calling it Margaret T. So I suppose she's maybe treating it more like a shirt, and I'm treating it more like a cardigan just because it's open in the front. I think you could wear it with the ties done up and also open. So yeah, I really like this pattern. I think it's quite unique as well. Okay, the next one is called Long Line Cardigan by Georgia Farrell. And this is a design that was done for Rowan, but it looks like you can buy it now individually on Ravelry. I didn't put anything in these lists, by the way, that you can't get on Ravelry. There are some patterns that you can only get in books or magazines, or that you can't get anymore at all. And so I made sure that everything in this list, you can get it. Otherwise, I'm telling you about it and you can't get it. So yeah, this is Long Line Cardigan by Georgia Farrell, originally published in a collection for Mode at Rowan. But as I say, you can individually download it on Ravelry. And this is a DK weight or 8-ply pattern. And I like this look and I like this pattern. I also just like this general concept for summer where it's sleeveless and it's got a lacy kind of holey texture, and then it's very long. So I love this kind of thing for, you know, yeah, throwing on over whatever you're wearing in the summer. So again, I'll insert a photo and you'll see what I'm talking about, but I think this general concept of like an open in the front, very long but sleeveless summer kind of cardigan, I don't know, I really like the look of it and I would definitely make it. I don't know if I mentioned this already, but it's a 20 stitch gauge, 4mm needle, so it would work very well for a lot of DK weight or worsted weight summer yarns. And yeah, I definitely could see myself making this one. Okay, the next one is called Dusk by Erica Knight, and it is along a slightly similar vein. It is a open front, kind of flowy looking cardigan. It's not super long, but it definitely goes past the waist, and it has a sort of angled bottom, which I think looks really cool. So it's a little higher in the back and then it goes lower in the front at an angle. It does have long full sleeves. In the photo, she's wearing it with a bit more of a, you know, she's got a collared shirt underneath, so it looks a bit more, I don't know, something you could wear to work. But I think depending on what else you wear it with, it could also be quite casual, and I just like how drapey and flowy it is. And it's designed for Erica Knight Studio Linen, which is the yarn I've been showing you a bunch. So this beautiful drapey 100% linen yarn is what they've designed this pattern for. And so yeah, I think just this general concept even of an open front 100% linen cardigan is something I would really like to knit at some point. Okay, the last one in the cardigan category is called Lempy Cardigan by, I'm gonna say this wrong. I'm gonna write it on the screen, and it is a free pattern bonus, and it is knit in a silk yarn. Sorry, it's a llama silk blended yarn, so sounds very luxurious. It's sport weight or 5-ply. And it is a wrap cardigan with a really lovely lacy, textury looking stitch all over it, and then it wraps and ties at the waist. So I think in general, a wrap cardigan is something that's nice in the summer time. I mean, you can make it in merino even, because imagine, let's say in the summer evenings, whatever you're wearing, then it gets a little cool in the evening, and then you put on a nice wrap cardigan. So there's a lot of really lovely wrap cardigans out there. I just picked this one because I thought that the lacy stitch looked super elegant and lovely, and the project photos look flattering. Yeah, I like the long sleeves, and then the way that it ties just right up at the sort of natural waist. So yeah, I really recommend this pattern. I haven't knit it yet, but it's definitely one that I would consider. I would like to at some point make a wrap cardigan. Not sure if it will end up being this one, but I definitely think a wrap cardigan is a really lovely thing to have. So yeah. Okay, now my final category is crochet, and I know that not everyone crochets, and if you're watching this and you don't crochet, you know, feel free to skip this section, but I thought it would be nice to put something in for the crocheters. I have a whole bundle on my Ravelry of crochet garment type items that are in my favorites. I have yet to actually crochet a garment myself, but I would like to at some point, and there are some really nice ones out there. I think that one of the places where crochet garments really shine is in summer tops. So anyway, I have just picked 5 different crochet summery type items that I think are really nice. The first one is called Garrett Tank by Olive Chineserum Egbuchelem. I hope I'm saying that correctly. It is a fingering weight or 4-ply yarn, and it is crocheted with a 4.5 and 5 millimeter hook. I do not know a lot about crochet gauge or anything like that because I've really only crocheted simple things like blankets and granny squares and things, but I just think this top looks very cool. I'll insert a photo, obviously. I just think it looks like something you would actually want to wear. It looks really cool. So I don't know crochet terminology, but it has kind of a cool detail down the front and then a sort of textured looking stitch and a little bit of a V-neck. And yeah, I just think it looks really lovely. So if I were to crochet a top, which hopefully I will at some point, this is definitely on my list of things I would potentially make. Okay, the second one is also like a tank top, and it's called Aestas Top by Anna Erlandson, and this is a free pattern. It's a worsted weight yarn. It's a 5 millimeter hook, and yeah, it's just a tank top which has some kind of nice looking detail going on here and also at the sides, and I just like the shape of how the neckline looks, and there's several pictures of different people wearing it, and it just looks like a pretty flattering top. So again, if I am ever going to crochet a top, maybe I would crochet this top. Okay, the next one I think I am potentially quite likely to make because it looks like something you could wear at the beach or just over top of maybe a tank top or something. I don't know. This is called Topaz Tea by Alexandra Tavel of Two of Wands. And it's a DK weight or 8-ply yarn. She has used a bamboo, I think, yarn, a 4 millimeter hook, and the whole thing is quite an open look. Sorry, if you're a crocheter out there, I don't know any of this terminology, so I don't know how to describe things properly. Hopefully the photo will just do all the work for me, but it's a holy looking stitch. So it's definitely like a see-through kind of look. So for me, I would wear it over top of something else, but it's a t-shirt and it's a bit slouchy and drapey and cozy, and I think it looks quite nice. So this is something very high on my list that I would potentially make and wear in the summer. But yeah, I really like this pattern. Okay, the next one is along a similar vein where it's sort of an open looking stitch. And I definitely could see myself making this. It's called Linden Cardigan by Janine Miska, also known as Knits and Knots. It is done in a fingering or 4-ply weight and a 3.5 millimeter hook. And yeah, I just think it looks really lovely. It's more of a cardigan. It's open in the front. Well, it is a cardigan. It's open in the front. It is short sleeved, although I do think you could potentially add sleeves and that could also be quite nice, but I like it being short sleeved. I think that that looks good for summer. And yeah, it's just kind of an open looking stitch and it's kind of a straight open front. So again, you kind of wear it over top of other things. And at least the way that she's kind of styled it and the way that these photos look, I think it looks really cool. And I could definitely see myself making that as well. And my final crochet item is called Sandbar Cardi by Toni Lipsey. And this is worsted weight, and she's used a 100% cotton yarn, and it's a 6.5 millimeter hook. So similar concept to the previous one where it is an open front cardigan, but this one has longer sleeves, not long, but sort of halfway down. They're kind of long short sleeves, I would say. And then it goes quite long, sort of down to your knees. And it's got, again, a bit of an open stitch of some kind of a holy looking stitch, which means it's breezy for summer. So I think that's quite nice. And obviously you're wearing it over other things, so you could just kind of throw it on and it's open in the front. And I just feel like it would be, you know, moving in the wind. And I don't know, I think it looks quite lovely and is definitely the kind of thing that I would potentially make for summer. I mean, it'd be something really nice to bring to the beach as well. So I really like the look of that. And I know Toni Lipsey also has a YouTube channel. She's called TL Yarncrafts, and I really like some of her videos I've seen. I don't know for this one, but she does a lot of tutorials and things on her YouTube channel that are also quite helpful. So if you're like me and you haven't crocheted a garment before, she probably has some pretty good resources for that. Oh, and she says it's beginner friendly. Oh, and she says there's video tutorials. So yeah, this might be a good one to start with because I think she kind of holds your hand a little bit, which is helpful if you haven't crocheted garments before like me. So okay, so that is all of the patterns. I know I didn't go into super in-depth detail on each one. You know, there's 30 different patterns in this list, and I guess I just kind of wanted to get through them and not make you watch me talk for 3 hours. So if you have any other questions about any of these patterns, or if you have questions about summer yarns or you know anything else, definitely ask me in the comments and I'll try to be as helpful as I can. Obviously I've only knit some of these and those are the ones I can speak more specifically to, but in general, you know, I'll try to answer your questions if I can, if you have any. And otherwise, yeah, you can find this bundle specifically in my favorites. All of my favorites are separated into different bundles, and this one I've just named Summer Knitting Inspiration. That's the name of the bundle, and so that just has all the patterns I just talked about in it and no other patterns. If you want to see additional summer ideas, I have, as I said earlier, another bundle that's just called Summer. That's my general summer pattern bundle, and so that has more than 30 patterns in it because that's anytime I see anything for summer that I like, I pop it in that bundle. So feel free to check that out as well. That's all in my Ravelry. I'll make a link below in the description to those 2 bundles. And otherwise, yeah, wherever you are in the world, whatever season it is, and whenever it is that you're watching this, hopefully you find it inspiring. One thing that I really like about knitting your own clothing is that because knitting is a relatively slow activity, you know, it's not instant gratification. It's not this sort of quick moving fashion where there's a new thing this season and then you buy it and then you wear it, and then there's a new thing next season and you buy it and you wear it. You know, knitting by its definition is a slower type of fashion. So I like to think that most of these patterns, if not all of them, will look great this year, they'll look great next year. You know, I think they're going to remain relevant because they're pretty classic, pretty timeless for the most part, the patterns that I've selected. And so, you know, yeah, if you're watching this video in time for next summer, hopefully these patterns are still, you know, still relevant. Yeah, that's all I really have to say about summer knitting inspiration, I guess. For the first few years of my knitting life, I didn't knit a lot of plant-based yarns at all. It was all wool, and I still love wool the most, and I love, you know, woolly garments, but obviously you want to be able to wear your hand knits in summer too. So I think it's really awesome that we can knit t-shirts and tank tops and things that, you know, we can make things that you couldn't buy in a store, and we can make them out of really awesome materials like linen and silk and just, you know, really nice quality cottons and beautiful materials. So yeah, wherever you are, if you're going to do some summer knitting, I mean, good on you, good luck, enjoy it, happy knitting. Let me know if there's other topics you'd like to hear as well, but otherwise, in the meantime, happy knitting, and I will see you next time. Bye!